My name is Maya Ellison, and I'm 31 years old. At 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, my mother congratulated me with a single yellow thumb. Not "we're proud of you," not "tell us everything," not "how do we celebrate our youngest senior marketing director ever?" Just the most economical pixel of acknowledgement in the entire language of phones. A dropped into our family thread like a coin into a wishing well nobody believes in anymore. I was still wearing my suit from the announcement. Jacket collapsed over the back of my couch like a felled animal, name badge on the coffee table beside an empty champagne flute I'd poured for myself. Senior marketing director, at 31, the youngest to hold it at my company. A 7-figure budget, a team, a key card so new it still felt like a warm handshake. And the response from home was an emoji that took less energy to send than I used to breathe. 3 days earlier, my sister Emma, 3 years older, firstborn miracle, who arrived after years of trying, was promoted to account manager. Respectable, entry-level leadership. My parents surprised her with a Tesla Model Y in pearl white, the kind you bow to in car commercials. A giant red ribbon strangled the hood. Facebook was a parade. So proud of our Emma. Nothing but the best for our girl. For me, I wish I could tell you it was the first time I felt like a background extra in my own family story. But thick skin grows funny. It starts as armor and ends as scar tissue. You stop flinching, then you stop feeling, and then one day a quiet motor hums past your window and you realize silence has a sound. Emma and I were always narrated in opposites. Emma was creative, and I was practical. Emma passionate, I reliable. Emma lightning, I ground wire. It wasn't subtle, not the kind of favoritism people whisper about at weddings. It was billboard, neon, the kind of bias you could read from a moving train. She got a party when she was accepted to college. I got a "that's great," Sweetie tossed over a sitcom laugh track. They flew cross-country to watch her graduation, posted photos with filtered confetti. Mine? A card with a $50 check and a captionless text. They were in town that weekend, I later learned, visiting Emma. They didn't drive the 2 hours. Ask my mother about it, and she'd call me sensitive, a word she pronounced like a diagnosis. "We love you both equally, Maya," she'd say. "We're just more emotionally compatible with Emma," as if we were Bluetooth devices and I had the wrong firmware. When Emma's first apartment deposit was a stretch, they wired it before she finished the sentence. When my rent hit crisis, after a sublet fell through and I slept on a friend's sofa under a linty throw blanket, my father called it a good lesson in financial discipline. Love, in our home, had an exchange rate. So I did the thing you do when your family loves someone standing next to you, harder, louder. I learned to be low maintenance. I learned to clap. I learned to carry practical like a medal and a muzzle. That morning, when I called to tell them about the promotion, Dad asked, "So what does that mean exactly?" I said the words, the ones that should make a parent's chest lift. "I'm running the department. Youngest ever." He said, "Good for you. Did your sister show you her new car? It's one of those electric ones. Very fancy." Then he handed the phone to my mother, who was just plating appetizers for Emma's celebration dinner. Could she call me back later? She did not call me back. She sent the at 9:47 p.m. I stared at it until my phone locked itself and my reflection folded into black glass. It's funny what breaks you. Not the big betrayals, the grand scenes you can dramatize, but the arithmetic of tiny ones. The way you can account for it, column by column, party, flight, wire transfer, ribbon versus emoji. I didn't text back. Didn't educate them on why it hurt. You cannot teach a person to look at you if their favorite view is always just past your shoulder. The next day, Emma called. "May," she said. She's the only one who calls me that. "Mom said you got promoted. That's amazing." "It is," I said, and it was. "We should celebrate." I'm swamped settling in. Rain check? Of course. Did you see the car? I feel so spoiled. I told them it was too much, but you know how they are. I said I did. That was the problem. Weeks stretched. Voicemails piled up like polite snow. "Busy? Everything okay?" I wrote back, "New role. Lots of meetings." The truth is, I was busy. For the first time, busy being treated like I mattered. My team asked for my judgment and then followed it. My boss said vision and meant mine. When people congratulated me, their faces didn't hold the waiting look of someone scanning the room for Emma. I moved apartments. Not palatial, but high windows that made a promise at dusk. I bought a sofa that didn't squeak when you sat on it. I took myself to a restaurant where the menu trusted you to imagine the food without photos. I saved too, because the voice they trained in me still counted future disasters on its fingers. But sometimes I let a little sunlight in on purpose. 2 months into the role, at a networking event, I met Ryan Patel. Tall, deliberate with words, funny in the way that doesn't ask you to pay for it later. I made a self-deprecating joke about being the forgettable middle manager type, a ghost muscle flex. He tilted his head. "Why do you do that?" he asked. "Do what?" "Make yourself smaller to fit in someone else's frame." I laughed it off then, but the sentence stayed with me like a seed under the tongue. We got coffee, then dinners, then the kind of quiet that feels like both of you finally set a heavy thing down. If you're keeping track for the gender swap rules, yes, Ryan is my boyfriend. His ex is a woman he occasionally references with the careful tone of grown people who have learned how to leave a room gently. By month 3, the calls from my parents slowed. By month 4, they were gone. Emma kept texting every few weeks. "Missing you at Sunday dinner. Mom made your favorite." I wrote, "Tell her it was delicious. Maybe I was cruel. Or maybe I was finally allowing a truth to stand without debating it to death." Here is the moment people expect fireworks. The dramatic speech where I tell them everything they did wrong, and they gasp, and the orchestra swells. That didn't happen. What happened was quieter. I simply stopped reaching for hands that had other places to be. I didn't plan revenge. I didn't plan anything. But sometimes the future unspools on its own and sets scenes you could never earn by force. 8 months later, I would stand under a glass roof next to Ryan, listening to a sales associate named Marcus say the words "Taycan" and "delivery." An electric heartbeat would ripple through the bones of a car, and somewhere on the other side of town, someone who once forgot to call me back would notice, finally, that I existed. But that is later. For now, Tuesday, 9:47 p.m., a living room that smells like Triumph and printer ink, and a single emoji blinking like a lighthouse that guides no one home. I put my phone face down. The apartment was very quiet. I thought about all the versions of me that tried to be easy, and then, without fanfare, without witnesses, I made a decision. I would not call them first again. Sometimes the loudest engine is the one you stop starting. And sometimes, if you leave the road behind long enough, it finds you anyway. The first month after the emoji felt like stepping out of a crowded room and realizing the noise was inside me the whole time. I poured the noise into work. Campaigns that used to make me sweat now felt solvable, like jigsaw puzzles, where the missing piece is not luck, but patience. I learned my team's rhythms. Who brainstorms best in a messy whiteboard storm? Who needs an email at 7 a.m. with bullet points and breathing room? I made a rule for myself. Praise in public, redirect in private. The room changed shape. People sat taller. When I said thank you, I meant it with my whole chest, and you can feel that difference from 3 chairs away. On Tuesdays, I stayed late and watched the city go blue. It's not that I didn't have anyone to go home to. I had friends. I had spin classes I pretended to enjoy. But Tuesday nights became the place where I stretched out inside myself and took inventory. The part of me that still waited for my mother's ringtone learned how to wait for nothing. At a networking event in month 2, under 2 bright chandeliers and hors d'oeuvres that tasted like expensive beige, I met Ryan Patel again, this time without a rushed hello across a panel table. He'd moderated a talk on brand trust and said a sentence I wrote down because I wanted to steal it later. "Trust is attention you keep earning." When I told him that, he laughed. "Keep it," he said. "It's truer when other people say it." We found a corner. His voice was warm without performing warmth. His silence is shaped like a person actually listening. I told him about my team and the way success had started to feel, not illegal exactly, just unpermitted. He asked, "Says who?" And when I said, "A committee that lives in my head," he grinned. "Ah, yes, the Board of Internalized Expectations. Very strict. Do they meet on Tuesdays?" "Every Tuesday," I said, catered by guilt. We got coffee that Saturday. I wore my least nervous sweater. He wore a jacket with elbow patches that should not have worked, but somehow did. We talked about the lives we'd built. his start in sales before switching to strategic partnerships, my long, undramatic climb from coordinator to director. He told me about Lila, his college girlfriend, now a friend, a boundary he described with careful hands. It didn't set off any tripwires. It just proved both of us had learned how to leave rooms without slamming doors. When the check came, he didn't make a speech about splitting or insist on paying as performance. He just said, "Do you want to do this again?" I did. We did. Dates accumulated. A museum where we both mispronounced an artist's name and laughed like conspirators. A freezing walk by the river where he gave me his scarf and then promptly regretted it but didn't take it back. A Sunday morning grocery run that somehow felt like intimacy's softest proof. He didn't crowd the parts of my story that still bruised. He stood next to them as if to say, "I won't fix it, but I won't let it swallow you either." One night in month 3, he came over with takeout and a question folded into the steam. "Why do you do that?" he asked gently, and déjà vu pricked my skin. "Do what?" "Undersell yourself before anyone else gets the chance. It's like you step on your own line." I opened my mouth to deflect, then closed it. Because if you lower the ceiling, you never have to worry about it collapsing. "And how's that working for you?" I thought about the empty chairs at my milestones. I thought about the new chair at my desk, a nicer one, the kind with lumbar support that says, "We plan to keep you alive and sitting." "It's efficient," I said. Then, lonely. He didn't say "I told you so." He took my plate, washed it, brought me tea. You'd think love is fireworks, but sometimes it's dish soap and a clean mug. By month 5, we were a routine I didn't fear. He had a plant on my windowsill that he watered more consistently than I remembered to. I had a charger at his place that he never accidentally put in a drawer. You can measure safety in very small items. Meanwhile, Emma kept sending texts with emojis that tried hard. "Miss you tonight. Mom made pot roast. Dad says the garden's a mess without your advice." I sent neutral kindnesses back. She didn't push. If she blamed me, she didn't say it. If she blamed herself, I wouldn't have believed her yet. Work widened. I ran a campaign that shouldn't have worked, too earnest for Q3, but it did because we told the truth and then proved it. My boss called me steady, and for the first time, it didn't feel like code for boring. It felt like a compliment earned the long way. On a Friday in month 6, Ryan and I left a team happy hour that had been 3 jokes too long. On the sidewalk, he squinted at me. "You're thinking about something you're afraid to say." "I'm always thinking about something I'm afraid to say," I said. "Pick one." "I like this," I blurted. "Not just us, this clarity, this city, this apartment, this version of me that doesn't keep refreshing a family chat like it's a stock ticker." He took my hand, "Then keep building it." We walked past a car dealership, glass gleaming, a showroom lit like a gallery. A sleek silhouette sat on a pedestal under a spotlight, the kind of shadow you recognize even if you've never driven it. I slowed. "That's a Porsche," he said, amused at my reverence. The word felt ridiculous in my mouth, like trying on someone else's silk coat. We stood there, 2 normal people with reusable grocery bags, looking like extras peering into a scene we weren't written into. "People like us don't buy cars like that," I said. "People like us?" he echoed. "Which people are those? People who work hard and forgot they're allowed to like the taste of their own success?" He bumped my shoulder. "Relax. I'm not suggesting we go in." I laughed, a little too loud. The reflection in the glass laughed with me, just slightly out of sync. Later in bed, the image stayed. Clean lines, quiet promise. Not the price tag, not the badge. The idea of permission. The thought made me feel both giddy and guilty, which in my brain are suspiciously similar. Month 7, we took a weekend trip 2 hours upstate. It rained as if the sky had opinions. We played 20 questions and discovered we both secretly love office supplies. He told me his childhood was loud and affectionate, the kind that fought on Sunday morning and hugged at noon. He asked about mine. I told him the PG-13 version. He listened, and when I was done, he said, "Do you miss them?" I considered. I miss the idea of them. The real them. I don't know how to miss people who never showed up to be missed. He kissed my forehead like an answer. At brunch the next day, a waiter misheard my name and wrote Mia on the order. I didn't correct him. Ryan did, gently. "It's Maya," he said, as if the vowels were a small altar. I laughed, embarrassed, and he shook his head, not unkind. "You're allowed to take up the space of your own name." When we got back to the city, my apartment looked suddenly smaller, less like a haven, more like a corner, not because it wasn't lovely, but because now it had to hold two lives that kept instinctively leaning toward each other. Ryan's toothbrush had company. My cabinet had a jar of the weird jam he loved that tasted like childhood and cough drops. We had the talk you have when your keys are accidentally finding the right lock. Not a speech, not an ultimatum, just a calendar at the coffee table and a pen. "It feels fast," I said, and he nodded. "It feels right," he said, and I nodded. We made a spreadsheet because love can be romantic and logistical. 8 months after our first coffee, we moved in together. He kept the elbow patch jacket. I kept the least nervous sweater. We both kept the plant alive. The first night in our shared place, we ate dinner on boxes. The city outside sounded like possibility and poor mufflers. He looked at me over a carton of noodles. "How's the committee?" he asked. "The Board of Internalized Expectations," I said. "They're filing a protest." "What's their argument?" "That this is too much joy in one fiscal quarter." He laughed. "We'll diversify. Spread it out over many quarters." I smiled into my noodles. Bold strategy. We built small rituals like scaffolding. Sunday afternoon market runs. Wednesday night no screens, just music and whatever is burning in the oven. Saturdays where we woke up slow and pretended we didn't have emails. He was careful with my edges, and I was careful with his. That's not to say we didn't argue. We did, about laundry and calendars, and whether cilantro tastes like soap. It does. I'm right. But our fights had handrails. We never pushed each other down the stairs. When my bonus hit, I showed him the number like I was confessing. He whistled. "You did that," he said. "Not luck, not charity, you." I wanted to send it to my parents with an auditor's note. I wanted to tell nobody. I split the difference and told Emma instead. She sent 3 rows of exclamation points and a "call me tonight." I didn't. I sent a heart. That night, lying in the dark, Ryan asked, "What would you do if you didn't have to be practical first?" "Plant trees," I said. "Travel without spreadsheeting the hotel shampoo. Buy a couch that doesn't apologize for existing." And, I admitted, the word so small I almost swallowed it, "test drive something that purrs." "A cat?" he teased. "A car," I said. "One that hums so quietly you hear your own pulse." He went quiet, and for a second I worried I'd said the wrong thing. Then he said, "So let's go hear your pulse." "We're not those people." "Maybe we are, and we just forgot." I didn't sleep much. I could feel the old math waking up, adding, subtracting, disapproving. People like us don't... The sentence tripped on itself. Who decided the categories? Who kept me in mine? In the morning, I made coffee strong enough to scold me. Ryan kissed my shoulder on his way to the shower. Steam whispered past the bathroom door. I stared into the mug like it contained prophecy, and thought about glass showrooms and quiet engines, and the word permission rolling around my mouth like a hard candy. We weren't going to buy anything, obviously. We were just going to look. Stop laughing. When you walk into a Porsche showroom, you're supposed to feel like you don't belong. That's the point. The architecture whispers exclusivity. Polished concrete floors. Spotlights angled, so each car gleams like an altar. Salespeople in perfectly fitted suits, who smell faintly of confidence and commission. Ryan and I told ourselves we were there to just look. It was a Saturday, too bright outside, and we laughed at our own audacity as the glass doors slid shut behind us. A man approached within seconds. Mid-40s, sharp haircut, voice modulated to soothe and seduce at the same time. His name tag said Marcus. "Welcome to Porsche. Anything specific you'd like to see today?" "Just browsing," I said quickly, which was showroom code for "we want to feel fancy, but aren't buying." "Of course," Marcus replied, stepping back with just the right balance of politeness and patience. "Take your time. Let me know if you have questions." Ryan whispered as soon as he left. "They can smell fear. Don't let them see you sweat." We circled the floor. My eyes kept snagging on the Taycan, sleek lines and quiet promise. All electric. No exhaust roar, just that hushed hum like the future breathing. Ryan slid into the driver's seat of a Turbo S, ran his hand over the steering wheel like he was touching something sacred. "Maya, sit. Just feel this seat." I slid into the passenger side. The leather was softer than any chair I'd ever owned. The cabin smelled like money and possibility. Ryan turned his head, voice low. "We could actually do this." "We absolutely cannot do this," I hissed, though my heart was already traitorously racing. "Why not?" "Because people like us..." He cut me off. Stop. People like us who work 80-hour weeks and still answer emails at midnight? People like us who've earned more than our parents ever dreamed of? Maybe people like us can. The words cracked something in me. Marcus materialized, as if he had radar for when fantasy crossed into temptation. The Turbo S is our top-of-the-line Taycan, he explained smoothly. 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds. But the base model is still incredible. Starts around 90. 90. The number hit me like a wave. My first car had cost $3,000, a dented Civic with a check engine light that became background decoration. $90,000 for a car felt obscene. And yet, Ryan leaned closer. We spend more than that on rent every few years. This lasts longer than rent. I tried to laugh it off, but the truth was buzzing inside me. Maybe for the first time, I could afford not to apologize for wanting something. We left with no contract signed, but the seed was planted. That night, we sat on the couch with my laptop open, building dream cars on Porsche's website like kids with Legos. Custom paint, interior packages, upgrades I couldn't even pronounce. Ryan grinned at me. We're not actually doing this, right? Of course not, I said, but even my voice betrayed me. Then why are your hands shaking? I shut the laptop, but later, brushing my teeth, I caught my reflection. I wasn't thinking about my parents or Emma, or who would approve. I was thinking about the hum of an electric engine and the way Ryan's eyes lit up when he said, "Why not you?" 2 weeks later, we went back. This time, there was no pretending. We sat down with Marcus, talked specs, financing, monthly payments. Every rational voice in my head screamed irresponsible, indulgent, reckless. But louder still was another voice. You've carried the weight of their neglect for 31 years. Don't you deserve to carry something you actually want for once? We ordered it. A Taycan, fully spec'd out, black exterior, beige leather interior, custom delivery in 8-10 weeks. Ryan squeezed my hand as I signed the papers. You just bought a Porsche. No, I whispered, both terrified and thrilled. I bought permission. 8 weeks later, the call came. Ms. Ellison, your car is ready. Ryan had secretly ordered one too, in a different color. We picked them up on the same day, rolling out of the dealership like a scene from a movie we had no right to be in. The drive home was surreal. The hum of the engine was so quiet I could hear my own pulse. At every stoplight, I expected guilt to slam into me. It didn't. Instead, I felt satisfied. For once, my success wasn't invisible, not even to me. But satisfaction is fragile. It lasted exactly 3 days. Because on day 3, while parked at a coffee shop near my apartment, I heard someone call my name. Maya, is that your Porsche? I turned. Standing there was Jake, Emma's boyfriend. The universe has timing so cruel it almost feels scripted. It had been 3 days. 3 glorious, quiet days of driving the Taycan, of feeling my own life finally hum in sync with my heartbeat. 3 days of not apologizing for taking up space on the road or in the world. And then I heard it. Maya, no way, is that your Porsche? I froze, coffee cup halfway to my lips. Standing by my table was Jake, Emma's boyfriend. Nice enough guy, usually more background decoration than presence. Always a little awkward at family dinners, always laughing too hard at my dad's bad jokes. He was the kind of man who carried Emma's purse without complaint and fetched extra napkins without being asked. And now he was staring at me like I'd walked in wearing a tiara and a crown of flames. I followed his gaze to the window. The Porsche sat gleaming in the parking lot, impossible to miss. Black exterior, beige interior, luxury incarnate. Jake's jaw actually dropped. That's yours? Yeah, I said, too casually, as if the car had just materialized under me by accident. He sat down without asking, eyes wide. Maya, those things are like $100,000, right? Give or take. Something like that, I admitted. He shook his head in disbelief. Wow, Emma said you were doing fine, but Porsche fine? That's different. Your parents must be losing their minds with pride. And there it was, the assumption. The neat, simple narrative. Daughter buys Porsche, parents beam with joy, family celebrates. The same narrative that had always excluded me. They don't know, I said. Jake blinked. Wait, you haven't told them? Why not? How do you explain years of neglect in a coffee shop? How do you condense a lifetime of Emma first, Maya later, into a single answer? My parents and I don't really talk, I said finally. He frowned. Emma said you drifted. I didn't drift. My voice was sharper than I intended. I stepped back. There's a difference. Jake shifted, uncomfortable. That seems harsh. I laughed, short and bitter. Harsh is buying your older daughter a Tesla for her promotion and sending your younger one a thumbs up emoji for hers. Harsh is showing up for her graduations and skipping mine. Harsh is a lifetime of, she needed more, you'll be fine. Jake hesitated, thumb hovering over his phone. Emma's going to want to know. I saw it before he typed, his fingers flying, the look of someone about to send news like it was urgent gossip. Before you text her, I said quietly, you should know something. For 31 years, they made me invisible. Now that I've built something they can't ignore, I'm not interested in suddenly being their daughter again. Not like that. He looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language, and then he hit send anyway. Within minutes, my phone started buzzing. First, Emma. Jake said he saw you. You have a Porsche? Call me right now. Then Mom. Maya, your sister told us. We need to talk. Not we're proud of you, not congratulations, not we want to see your car, send pictures. Just we need to talk, like I was a teenager caught sneaking out. My phone lit up again. Dad this time. Maya, this behavior is unacceptable. Call your mother immediately. I almost laughed. Unacceptable? 2 years of silence after my promotion. One emoji instead of a celebration. And now my success was unacceptable because it didn't fit their script? I didn't answer. I watched the calls stack up. Voicemail after voicemail, the vibration rattling against the table like a trapped insect. Jake shifted uncomfortably. They're worried about you. They've had 2 years to be worried. Another buzz, another text from Emma. We love you. Please just talk to us. Please. The words were the same ones they'd always said when they wanted me to forgive without accountability. I slid my phone face down. If you talk to Emma, I told Jake, tell her I'm happy. Tell her I built a good life without them. And tell her I'm not interested in suddenly being part of the family now that I'm finally worth bragging about. I left the coffee shop, Porsche key cool in my hand. The engine purred to life, quiet and powerful, as if mocking the noise in my pocket. Calls, texts, demands, desperation. For 2 years, I'd been invisible to them. Now, with one car, they couldn't look away. The irony? It didn't make me feel triumphant. It made me feel nothing at all. I lasted 3 days. 3 days of silence while my phone lit up like a Christmas tree with their missed calls and texts. 3 days of letting them stew in the same emptiness I'd lived with for years. On the 4th morning, I caved, not to them, but to Emma. I typed, coffee? Just you and me. Her reply came within 30 seconds. Yes? When? Where? We met at a neutral spot downtown, one of those cafes with exposed brick and plants hanging from macrame ropes. I arrived first, sat at a corner table where the light was soft enough to hide how anxious I felt. Emma walked in 10 minutes early, like she always did. She looked nervous, eyes scanning until they landed on me. She hesitated, half a smile, half a question. We settled on a hug that was stiff, arms unsure of their rights. You look different, she said. In a good way, stronger. 2 years will do that. She sat, hands wrapped around her latte like it was a lifeline. I didn't realize you were avoiding us. I thought you were just busy. I wasn't avoiding you, Emma. I was done chasing. Her brow furrowed. Chasing what? I exhaled. The word tasted bitter. Attention, approval, any sign that I mattered. She blinked, startled. You mattered. You still matter. I leaned in, eyes steady. Do you remember when I got promoted to senior marketing director? Of course, that was huge. What did Mom and Dad do to celebrate? She thought, sipping her drink. Did we go to dinner? I let the silence answer. Finally, I said, they sent me a thumbs up emoji. That was it. 3 days after that, they bought you a Tesla. Her face paled. That can't be right. It is. You didn't notice because you didn't have to. Everything was always handed to you, Emma. You never had to measure love in emojis. She shook her head. That's not fair. When's the last time you wondered if they loved you? I asked quietly. When's the last time you achieved something and got silence in return? Her eyes filled. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. You were the miracle baby. I was the afterthought. The oh, well, she's here too. They built your story in gold and mine in invisible ink. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She set her latte aside. Maya, I'm sorry. I never meant to. It's not about you meaning to, I interrupted. You were just living the life they gave you. I don't hate you, Emma. But I can't keep pretending it didn't hurt. I can't keep being the disappointment they compare you to. You're not a disappointment, she whispered. To them I was, until Jake saw my car. Now suddenly I matter. Not because I've changed, but because I have proof of success they can't ignore. Emma pressed her palms together like she was praying. What do you want? The question lodged in my throat. For so long, I'd wanted 100 things. Their pride, their time, their love without conditions. Now, the truth had shifted. I want them to understand, I said finally. Not apologize to make it go away. Not spin excuses about independence. Just understand what they did. That's all. We sat in silence for a long moment. The cafe around us hummed with normalcy. Espresso shots pulled, spoons clinking. Life moving on, as if mine hadn't just cracked open on the table. Emma reached across, her hand trembling. This time I let her hold mine. I'm sorry for not seeing it, she whispered. I squeezed her hand back. I know. When we stood to leave, the hug was different. Real. Heavier. Are you going to talk to them? She asked. Eventually, I said, but on my terms, not theirs. She nodded, eyes shining. Then I'll wait, and I'll listen. As I walked back to my Porsche, sunlight glinted on the windshield. My reflection stared back at me. Older, sharper, less afraid. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a supporting character in Emma's story. I was writing my own chapter now, and the climax hadn't even come yet. 2 weeks later, I sent the message. Dinner at my place, Saturday, 7 p.m. Just us, no excuses. My parents arrived early, overdressed like they were coming to church or a funeral. My mother wore her stiff navy blazer. My father wore his serious tie, the same one he'd worn at graduations that weren't mine. They hovered at the door until Ryan appeared behind me, smiling, steady. Hi, I'm Ryan, he said warmly, extending his hand. Maya's boyfriend. My mother blinked. We didn't know you were seeing anyone. 2 years now, I said evenly. We live together. A beat of silence. Another milestone they'd missed. The dinner was simple. Roast chicken, salad, wine. Conversation stayed shallow at first. Work, weather, traffic. My parents' eyes darted around my apartment, taking in the framed art, the floor-to-ceiling windows, the quiet hum of a life they hadn't built. Finally, my father cleared his throat. Maya, we need to address this distance. You cut us off for 2 years without explanation. Without explanation? I set my fork down. I gave you explanations. You just didn't want to hear them. My mother's voice tightened. The thumbs up thing? You're holding a grudge over a text? I laughed. Not kindly. Not the text. What it represented. A lifetime of being the spare child. Of you celebrating Emma with cars and parties while I got emojis. That's not true, she protested weakly. You bought Emma a Tesla. You sent me a thumbs up. That happened. My father shifted. We gave Emma the car because she needed transportation for work. I needed transportation, I shot back. I drove a dying Civic for 3 years. You never offered help. You never asked. I shouldn't have to. That's what parents do. The room went quiet. Ryan squeezed my hand under the table. My mother's eyes shimmered. We didn't realize you felt this way. Because you never asked, I said flatly. In 2 years, not once did you call. You assumed I'd come crawling back. When I didn't, when I built a life without you, it scared you. My father's face reddened. We're your parents. We'll always be necessary. I held his gaze. You'll always be my parents, but necessary? That has to be earned. Tears slid down my mother's face. What do you want from us? Nothing, I said softly. That's what you don't understand. I don't need your approval. I just need you to admit that you treated Emma better, and it hurt. The silence stretched. My father finally looked down at his plate. We did treat her differently. She needed more. You were always so independent. I swallowed. That wasn't independence. That was survival. I needed you too. I needed you at my graduation, at my promotion. But you were busy with Emma, and I learned to stop needing you. My mother reached across the table, tentative. What happens now? I shook my head. I don't know. Maybe we rebuild. Maybe we don't. But if we do, it's different. Boundaries, honesty, no pretending. They left an hour later, subdued, carrying silence like heavy coats. No dramatic reconciliation, no grand promises, just the faint acknowledgement that things were broken, and maybe, finally, seen. After the door shut, Ryan and I stood at the window. Below, my Porsche caught the streetlight, gleaming black glass and quiet power. How do you feel? He asked. Lighter, I said. Sad, relieved, all at once. I looked at the car, at the city, at him. For so long they'd made me feel like I wasn't enough, but the truth was simple. I had always been enough. They just hadn't looked. Ryan kissed my temple. Their loss. Maybe someday we'd be a real family again. Maybe not. Either way, I'd be fine, because I'd built something